In this video, we're checking out a super weird horror game called No, I'm Not a Human, developed by Trioska Studio and published by Critical Reflex. No, I'm Not a Human is a psychological horror game with a creepy atmosphere and a story reflecting societal issues. The game is set in post-Soviet Russia, where the world is suddenly hit by a horrifying apocalypse. The main character doesn't have a name, so to make it easier to follow along, I'll just call them Tom. Tom lives alone in his house, trying to survive the apocalypse. You'd think staying indoors would be enough, but problems start popping up, leading to situations that challenge his humanity. Tom has to make tough choices and take action, which then leads to multiple different endings. Before we dive into the analysis, I'll give you a quick rundown of what goes down in No, I'm Not a Human. The story kicks off on a summer evening. Tom wakes up and checks on a knocking at the door. Outside is his friendly neighbor, who drops by to check in and share some recent rumors. The neighbor mentions hearing rumors about unusually extreme solar activity, causing global temperatures to skyrocket. Another rumor talks about a mysterious species emerging from underground, known as visitors, who can perfectly mimic humans. The neighbor suggests staying the night, promising to explain more in the morning. The next day, the TV confirms the sun's extreme heating is real. The authorities warn everyone not to go outside in the morning, as the sun's heat could literally burn them alive. At the dining room, the neighbor starts talking about the visitors, explaining that these creatures only attack if their prey is alone. That's why he wants Tom to take in more guests to avoid becoming a visitor target. That evening, after the neighbor leaves, guests start arriving at Tom's door, asking for shelter. This is when Tom begins investigating their identities before letting them in. Each guest has their own unique story, but the most crucial thing is figuring out if they're disguised visitors or not. According to the TV, there are 6 ways to identify visitors. 1. Perfectly white teeth or bleeding gums. 2. Dirt under their fingernails. 3. Red or unstable eyes. 4. No armpit hair or fungal growth. 5. Strange marks in photos. And 6. Parasites in their ears. During the survival phase, the TV also announces the formation of a new special agency, FEMA, tasked with helping people survive and fight against the visitors. Meanwhile, at night, Tom encounters a strange character. This guy is a visitor, and I'll just call him Pale Man for now. I called this visitor Pale Man just because he's a guy with really pale skin. But unlike the descriptions, Pale Man doesn't disguise himself as human. Instead, he actively goes door to door to check in, and if anyone is alone, he kills them. In the early days, Tom only needs to gather info on his guests and reject those who are disguised visitors by checking for the identifying signs. A few days later, a FEMA agent shows up, asking Tom to hand over guests for research. As time goes on, FEMA agents will demand more and more guests from Tom. Pale Man also appears repeatedly to check if Tom is alone. From this point, Tom's survival journey can lead to 10 different endings, all depending on his choices. Ending 1. This ending triggers when Tom meets a girl and lets her into his house. A few days later, her stomach swells up and explodes. Days after that, Tom hears a baby crying and searches for the infant around the house. He steps outside to find the child, but is quickly engulfed by a mysterious smoke. Several figures emerge from the smoke, lifting the baby high. A woman steps out, telling Tom he is the prophet and the savior. Tom's sacrifice, she says, will free everyone from darkness. In his final moments, Tom feels something horrifying about to happen. Ending 2. This ending occurs if Tom survives for 14 days. But one of the guests he took in turns out to be a hidden visitor. After days of hiding in the basement, the guests are slowly manipulated by the visitors. Tom ends up torn to shreds by them, dying a painful death. Ending 3. This ending happens if Tom survives for 14 days with no visitors hidden among his guests. After days of hiding in the basement, Tom hears a radio announcement that the sun's activity is gradually weakening and everything will return to normal in a few days. But instead of joy, Tom feels a profound sense of disappointment. Ending 4. This ending occurs if Tom survives for 14 days, but accidentally kills too many humans. The killings drive Tom's mind into a frenzy, pushing him to end his own life. Before he can do it though, several people drag him outside and beat him. They leave Tom lying there until the sun rises and incinerates his body. Ending 5. This ending happens during a conversation with Pale Man. If Tom isn't staying with any guests or tells Pale Man that he's alone, Pale Man will burst through the door and attack Tom. After that, the house is abandoned. Rumors circulate that the owner vanished without a trace. Locals steer clear of the house, fearing bad omens. No one ever goes near it again, as if everything connected to it simply vanished into thin air. Ending 6. This ending occurs if Tom sends FEMA the exact number of guests they request. FEMA sees Tom as a promising candidate and offers him a position within the agency. His time at FEMA makes Tom realize this job is anything but simple. Employees die every day, and Tom knows he won't get a chance to return to his old house, meaning he'll likely kick the bucket tomorrow. Ending 7. This ending happens when Tom meets a preacher. This guy initially asks Tom to keep 3 followers safe. A few days later, the preacher returns, asking Tom to participate in a death-worshipping ritual. Tom then becomes a sacrifice in the bizarre cult's ritual. At the same time, his body is enlightened by the goddess of death. She grants Tom peace of mind, taking him away from the chaos of the vast universe. Ending 8. This ending occurs when Tom meets an old man with white hair. The old man mentions a happy mushroom and gives Tom a piece of paper with instructions. After following the instructions, Tom meets the old man again 3 days later. He suggests they go together to the magical mushroom land. They delve deep underground, following the call of the mushrooms. But in the end, the old man tells Tom they're too late. Above ground, a giant mushroom suddenly appears in the middle of the city, looking like a nuclear bomb. Ending 9. This ending triggers when Tom meets a bald man. The man speaks very slowly and asks Tom to let a cat into his house. Once the cat is in, the bald man advises Tom to check the basement. Tom digs a hole in the basement, leading to a large tunnel. There he encounters a miner. The miner and a friend had dug underground to escape the heat, but they discovered a strange tunnel system, guessing it's what the visitors use to move around the city. The miner also mentions a hole that emits an eerie humming sound. A colleague of his went down the hole to check it out and hasn't returned. Tom jumps into the hole, which leads him to a vast expanse of space. A mysterious entity speaks to Tom, telling him he's very tired and it knows where he always wanted to go. Suddenly, Tom finds himself in a meadow with his house in the middle. Instead of confusion, Tom feels peace. Nothing bothers his mind anymore, and he no longer wants to return to reality. Ending 10. This ending occurs when Tom talks to a hunter who specializes in hunting and killing visitors. The hunter asks Tom to prove he's not an visitors. If Tom shows him a body part with an visitor's sign, the hunter attacks him. A shootout immediately ensues. Tom gets shot in the stomach, while the other gunman dies from a headshot. Afterward, Tom decides he'll become a hunter himself, but not just for visitors. He'll hunt other hunters too, believing they use guns to oppress innocent people. So that wraps up the main plot developments and all 10 endings in No, I'm Not a Human. Now, let's get into the analysis. As we know, the game is set in a world plagued by multiple disasters. The sun heats up, scorching all living things during the day, while at night visitors roam around, slaughtering humans. These catastrophes throw the world into chaos, and the only way for people to keep up with the situation is through information from the TV and radio. Citizens know there's an organization called FEMA tasked with tackling the world's problems, but this organization becomes increasingly opaque and untrustworthy as time goes on. FEMA is the organization that gives people ways to identify visitors, but these identifying signs can also appear on regular humans. Not to mention, FEMA constantly apprehends guests for research, and those taken never return. When it comes to the guests, each one has their own story and issues, but the common thread is that they, along with the main character, are all victims of information control. Everyone only knows what the TV, radio, and FEMA agents feed them. I've got a theory. FEMA is involved in this disaster, and they were set up even before it went down. The proof? FEMA's hotline number never changes across all playthroughs. If you call it before the announcement about FEMA's merger hits TV, a woman picks up, only to be immediately cut off by an angry-sounding man who tells her to hang up right away. My hunch is that this guy might actually be the minister we meet later on. After we chat with him, we find out he was involved in FEMA's merger, but for some reason he's clearly not working for them anymore. To back up this theory, let's talk about a character. The Immortal Man is a visitor, but he looks totally normal. He says he knows a lot about FEMA, and FEMA is after him. If the main character lets him stay, he'll eventually spill the beans that these visitors dug themselves out of the ground. FEMA actually knew about them and let them into the city, then tried to cover it all up. What's more, this character is actually from another game, set in the No, I'm Not a Human universe, and the devs have confirmed it. The game is titled Lost in the Roots. Proof of this is that the Immortal Man always says he's stuck in an endless cycle of death. He also asks the main character if there's a purple-haired girl in a cloak nearby, because that's his missing daughter. This perfectly aligns with the description and lore in Lost in the Roots. Regarding the visitors, could the MC be one of them? I think this depends on each player's playstyle. If the house has no visitors, the MC stays sane. But if visitors manage to stay in the house long enough, we'll start to show signs until one night we turn. We kill everyone in the house and completely forget about it. Based on this, I have two theories. One, it's a contagious disease, and if we're in the same space as visitors long enough, we become one of them. Two, most visitors will kill other guests while the MC is sleeping, and then they forget about it. A prime example is the cashier girl. She's a visitor, but she doesn't know she is. The first night you keep the cashier girl, no one will be killed. But the longer you keep her, and if she's the only visitor, someone will die. However, not every visitor will lose their memory. Since this game has a ton of characters, and each one has their own unique story, if you guys want, I can make a separate video to go into more detail about each of them. But for this video, I'll just introduce a few key characters, the ones who are relevant to the main storyline. Regarding how the infection started, I believe the researcher will give us the answers. While it's not confirmed, the researcher appearing in the trailer suggests he's a pretty important character. The researcher was fired for claiming that the visitors had a type of brain parasite that infected hosts through their ears. We hear on the radio that all his documents were either destroyed or stolen, and the visiting visitors are creatures that crawl out from underground, so it's highly likely they're reanimated corpses that were buried. As the sun slowly heated up, it triggered them to come back to life. These parasites then crawl into the corpses' ears and reconstruct their bodies. This also explains why the reconstructed body parts look so abnormal. These parasite-infested corpses are the first visiting visitors, which I'll call F-Heroes. When these F-Heroes spread the infection, they'll create F1s, F2s, and so on. Big Mama is a visitor who's been infected by a parasite that has reached its final stage of complete control. So I believe she's one of the first visitors, F-Zeros. If you just keep her in the house for a few days, she'll confess that her children are the very visitors that crawl out from underground and attack the protagonist. The game doesn't give us any other choice but to kick her out. If you look out the window on the 12th night, you'll spot a black entity moving around, and when you encounter it, you'll get an achievement for witnessing horrors beyond your comprehension. After doing some digging, this entity is called IT. It was also mentioned by the blind man earlier, who witnessed IT eating corpses and, out of sheer horror, gouged out his own eyes afterward. The blind man said that IT is a much stronger entity than Pale Man. Based on this detail, I have a theory that in an expansion or a sequel to this game, IT will replace Pale Man and spread terror throughout the world. So, that's my analysis of No, I'm Not a Human. If anything seems off or I missed something, feel free to drop a comment below. Peace out, and I'll catch you all in the next video.